It's 8 minutes past 3. This is Women of 1325 right here on Women Radio 91.7. My name is Kiki Mordi. Today on Women of 1325, we'll be discussing the youth and Nigerian educational system challenges and prospects. Yesterday, 12th of August, was the International Day of the Youth. And yes, we will be discussing that today on Women of 1325 radio show. But what is the Women of 1325? The United Nations, through various resolutions, recognizes the disparate impact that violent conflict has on women. It highlights the fact that generally women have been left out of peace processes, reconstruction, and civilization efforts. They recognize the imperative for full and equal participation of women at all levels, ranging from conflict prevention to post-conflict resolution, reconstruction, peace, and security. These resolutions, amongst a host of others, frame the women, peace, and security agenda. Now, Women of 1325, in summary, is that radio program that hopes to attain female gender inclusivity, protection, and equality. And then in commemoration of the International Day of the Youth, which was celebrated yesterday, still celebrated alongside the Salah break, we have taken the liberty to discuss on the program today the youth, the Nigerian educational system, the challenges and the prospects. And joining me in this conversation is Nathaniel Nsen Awapila. He's the Executive Director, Civil Organizations Research, Advocacy and Funding Initiatives Development. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure being part of this today.
Yes. Last week on Women of 1325, we had an elaborate discussion on women, indigenous structures, and peace building, where we described indigenous peace building structures as traditionally related systems or practices that were employed in conflict resolution, and in this case, it concerns the woman. Nigeria is the most populous country in Africa, but regrettably, instead of this being an advantage, it has become a huge disadvantage, quite unfortunately. The country's population burst is disadvantaged because millions of Nigerian youth are unemployed, thus making them a liability to the nation's economy. Some of the most developed countries in the world are those that have prioritized quality education for their citizens. And the state of the education sector in Nigeria is far from being up to par. Public schools have been populated beyond their capacity. We have teachers who are demotivated and are mostly unqualified. The facilities are in a state of shambles, and the few good schools are privately owned and therefore too expensive for majority of Nigerian youth to afford. Now, the country's education system, right from the basic to the tertiary, has largely failed the Nigerian youth. The question now is, how do we get here? And while we can't mourn over spilled milk, where do we go moving forward? The phone lines are open for us to have this conversation. Call us up on 07000 917 917 or on 090 256 You can send me a text or a WhatsApp message on 070 317 56537, and you can tweet at me at WFM917. Be sure to use the hashtag Women of 1325. Still focusing on the issues facing Nigeria. The hindrances of the lack of education or the lack of educational structures not only hinders the youth from making significant contributions to the economy, it also makes the youth constitute nuisances to the society. It's true that an uneducated youth often ends up unemployed, and the Nigerian economy can't be rewarded when we have a lot of uneducated and unemployed youth. So, if you're just joining us, this is Women of 1325. I am Kiki Mordi, and I'm not alone. I have with me, joining us over the phone line, our guest for today, Nathaniel Nsen Awapila, the Executive Director, Civil Organization Research, Advocacy and Funding Initiatives Development. And together we are discussing the youth and the Nigerian educational system, challenges and prospects. Okay, so first of all, when we invest strongly in education, everyone benefits. I would like to know what your thoughts are on the current state of our Nigerian educational system.
You gave an analysis of the situation that is very apt, very clear, and already presents the issues very clearly for anyone to listen to you. Currently, across the country, and I guess anybody listening to us could just scan around the environment and see that perhaps what I say may easily apply to the environment around them. We have schools, or rather the entire educational system, skewed in a direction that does not favor the youth generally. We have many schools, especially if you belong to the part of the country where I belong, many schools overtaken by IDPs. So we're saying that in the first instance, we may not have enough schools, we may not have enough facilities for schools, we may not have enough classrooms for children that should be in school, but in addition to that, a whole lot of those classrooms are taken up by displaced people who don't stay there for days, but sometimes stay there for a year and beyond a year. That's just a flash, that's just a bit of the problem. Talking about the quality of education, I taught my first engagement after my graduation was to teach, and I taught for 10 years before I moved out of the classrooms, and I've continued to teach. But I see that over the years, the number of people that are qualified teachers teaching has continued to dwindle. So it's not only that you have people teaching in classes that are not trained educators, neither went to study education nor have been trained on the job, but you also have people that were actually trained on the job that have low morale because of the kind of system they're working in, poorly motivated and all that. Another one is we have an educational system that prepares children for a reality out there that is different from what they are studying in school, what their curriculum says and all of that. So imagine that if we look at, let's look at just the basic education level. Imagine that you have our children that are spending hours on watching Nickelodeon, Disney Junior, Jim Jam, and all of that. But the educational system does not understand how to factor all of these learnings and bring it into the classroom for children to understand, how to integrate what they are learning out there with what is happening in the classroom. Imagine also that, all right, so like yesterday, my wife bought books for my children, and one of them came asking me, who are they? So there were like 10 figures on that book. She recognized one of them. The one she recognized is Nelson Mandela. The other 8 were Nigerian, great Nigerians, including people like Nnamdi Azikiwe, Ahmadu Bello, all of this. And she couldn't recognize them, but she recognized Nelson Mandela. Now, what does that tell us about our educational system? So when you look at all of this, and then just imagine that, we've been told by 2050, Nigeria's population is 400, of which 60% are young people. That population of 60% is higher than Nigeria's current population by at least 14 million. So it means in just about 30 years from now or less, we have a population of youth that will be larger than Nigeria's current population. And at this stage, we're already talking about the huge challenges around the educational system, an educational system that doesn't properly understand the needs of children and youths, or recognizes it but is not able to integrate it for them to maximize learning, an educational system that is not preparing our youths for the workplace out there, an educational system that is compromised by humanitarian emergencies from now and then that shut schools down for a whole year or for a whole term or for several weeks. The challenges are indeed huge.
All right, thank you very much. And why then do we have low budget set aside to the development of the educational sector by the Nigerian government if it's in such a dire state?
I have also wondered about that because if you take a look, the last 10 years, 15 years, it appears like many of the ministers of education have been professors, renowned professors for that matter. And when you look at states in Nigeria, you have professors so-and-so that are commissioners of education. You have highly recognized experts. So I've also wondered, why is education not enjoying a premium in their time? But I guess that is also because the priorities of government tend to take attention away from building the future to managing the present. Because building the future would be recognizing that in the next 10, 15 years, if we have the best educational system, then we're going to have less problems about unemployment because a lot of the people that get out of school can easily employ themselves or would not be seeking to be full-time employees in a place, can as well be co-creators of wealth. Planning for the future also means that you have youths that are co-creators of an environment that is dynamic, that is totally different from the kind of situation we have. So I think our leaders are busy trying to manage the present situation rather than planning for the future. And so when you have people coming into government and the priorities of government are already known, then even the best of professors will just try to fit in because somebody needs to stay on that job to do what they want to do.
All right.
Now, we also have development partners and the private sector that come into this sector and do what they could. But naturally, you know how it works. If a development partner comes into a country to work, they try to fit into the priorities of that government. And so we can't expect development partners to come and radically change the situation as we have now. The private sector, therefore, will just establish their own schools and run them, and, they do very well, but very often they are preparing graduates that end up, elsewhere rather than in our economy
outside
or when
the
they are here. Yes.
Okay.
Or when they choose to remain here, they stay here and keep getting depressed year after year because the environment does not support their vision. The economy does not allow them to access wealth to invest their talents and skills, and they move from one level to a beggarly situation. So we're moving in a vicious cycle of managing the present rather than planning for the future.
All right, thank you. It's 22 minutes past 3. It's 22 minutes past 3. This is Women of 1325 right here on Women Radio 91.7. We're talking on the topic for today is youth and the Nigerian educational system, challenges and prospects. And of course, this is off the back of celebrating International Day of the Youth yesterday. Our guests, we seem to have been cut off, but would reach out to our guest, Nathaniel Nsen Awapila, Executive Director, Civil Organization, Research, Advocacy and Funding Initiatives Development. Phone lines are open. Keep your calls coming in. Hello, good afternoon. What's your name and where are you calling me from? Hello? All right, call me back if you can. The phone lines are open, 07000 917 917 or 09025625455. You can send a text or a WhatsApp message to 070 56537. We understand that the youth are one of the great assets a nation has. It's also pitiable that the very situation of the very youthful population of Nigeria is wallowing in the sorry state of illiteracy. We have a lot of secondary school leavers that are frustrated with the education system, and youth are taking to the streets and steps forward to, okay. Let's take this other call. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Your name and where you're calling from?
I'm Shegun. I'm calling from Awuyaya.
All right, Shegun. Welcome to Women of 1325.
The problem we have in the Nigerian education sector is that 2010, I graduated from Government Technical College before Udu. the teachers in that schools, some of them, they are not encouraging the students they have. They're saying negative things. And you see, some of them are not even available. See, some of them, it can take 2-3 weeks without them seeing them in the classroom. And at the end of the term, they bring exams for it to write. Then how will such student passes or our exam when they are not, even when the teacher is not even available to even come to the classroom and say, okay, this is what we have for this week. This is the timetable we have for this term. This is what we are going to achieve. One, they are not available. And two, those teachers, they have old age. They need to be retired. The majority of them have old age. They keep teaching the children of this computer century, the old things, and then they themselves have learned for so many years, which is not even helping. I think the very first thing they have to do is that maybe they should pick some of them off and recruit some new teachers in these schools. And the other hand is that our leaders are not even helping.
Okay. I
think the problem we have is that they don't want the masses to compete with them. In our context, we say that any education that children go to abroad to go to school, which is not supposed to be so. Yeah, even education, our children are not even schooled in the country. Then how do you know the needs of the other children in the school?
Right.
So this has to be put in consideration. Should consider all this. I don't see that the budget they even have for education is so low. The budget.
Hello? All right. Do you want to call us back? 070917917 or 09025625455. And yes, welcome back to our guest, Nathaniel Nsem Wapira, the Executive Director, Civil Organization Research, Advocacy, and Funding Initiative Development. So we are still speaking on the Nigerian youth and the educational system, challenges and prospects. Do also call us up and share your contributions 070917917 or 09025625455. Now, Nathaniel, there have been some thoughts on youth not interested in learning but more concerned about financial wealth. Do you regard this as a challenge facing the educational sector as well?
It is a challenge within the educational system, but a challenge that exists because of the kind of society we are in. Those that have gone ahead of the youths, and that would be our parents, including those that are still living with us, have created a system that makes it look like having wealth is what matters. And so we know that money speaks, wealth speaks. And so when children see people in positions of authority that are willing to do everything, and I mean literally everything, to be wealthy and to stay wealthy and to stay in positions of eminence, then youths are naturally going to select who their mentors or who their role models are. And if those role models happen to be those that are all out for wealth and nothing else, then they're also going to be out for that. And so it is a situation, it is a problem in the educational sector, but society created that model that the youth are following. Now, looking at it strictly in the educational sector, what we observe is that youth that have ascribed to that way of life, of placing money ahead of every other thing, are unlikely to succeed or to stay on in the education system for long. Many are going to fall by the way because they want to, go where they hope to make money very quickly. Unfortunately, they don't succeed making money quickly through the legitimate way, or if they are going to do so, it's not in this society. So that translates to crime and cycles of crime as well.
All right. Thank you so much for that. It's 28 minutes past 3. The Women of 1325 is still live on your radio, and of course we are speaking with guests today on the Nigerian educational system challenges and prospects. I keep the calls coming in 07000-917-917. Hello, good afternoon. What's your name and where you calling
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Muyiwa. I'm calling from Aja.
All right, Muyiwa. Thank you for joining us. Go ahead and make your contributions.
I'm so happy to be on this call this morning. Now, I am a teacher, and I know what it means to operate a workable curriculum in the educational system. I want to tell you, sir and madam, that curriculum, especially in English language, in Nigeria is not heading our children anywhere. I teach the British curriculum, and I know what it means to teach a skill-based learning. In British curriculum, it's skill-based. The skills are what we teach, and of course the content is just a channel at which you develop the children in the skills that are going to be needed in every sphere of life. But come to ask of it, what are the skills that we teach in our subject? Nothing. It's just content. We teach them the concord, we teach them the grammar, we teach them the punctuation. But those skills are not being built, and that's why they cannot analyze, they cannot evaluate, they cannot synthesize, even in English language. And it doesn't seem as if we're going to awake to these serious daring needs. And I'm not saying Nigeria heading anywhere with this same curriculum in the next 10 years, unless there is a change. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much for that. 3:30. And yes, what are your thoughts on what he said?
I mean, he's absolutely correct. When you have got somebody in the system, somebody who, is a professional in the system talking, you just know. It's one thing to teach people to assimilate. It's another to expect them to build the skills to put that to use. And we haven't got a system that prepares people to live out the values we hope they should learn. They should learn from the educational system. He's absolutely correct about what he said.
All right. Thank you so much. So, how can the strength and population of youth in Nigeria be used to positively improve the state of the educational sector?
So you're asking how the population...
Yes, how can we leverage our strength of population?
That's a very important question you ask. Now, imagine the huge population of youths we have in the country, and imagine that only 15% of them annually are accessing opportunities for education that prepares them for life after school. Imagine another 15% of them, in addition to accessing such education, are also able to access opportunities from the economic base of the country, accessing, be it grants, be it loans, be it a mentorship system, be it any of those that prepare them to immediately begin to put their skills, their talents into use. I'm talking about just 15%. We're going to have a country come 2050, and that's very close. We're going to have a country come 2050 that is going to be less likely to suffer the amount of unemployment we have. And Mark, I agree, I'm sure you will agree with me, that some of our youth are not only unemployed, they're also unemployable. So when you have people that are able to have a system that is able to provide them opportunities to move very fast after the school system, then surely we have, employment. I'm talking about employment. It's not just about people working and getting money. It's people that are working and able to employ others and able to serve the service industry, be it provision of services, be it in any form. So if we could use the population we have, that is just one aspect of the huge benefits that could come. From the other angle, we will have knowledge-based expertise that is coming from a sector of the population that has been so excluded over the years. A few years ago, I did a research for Catholic Relief Services to find out who is involved. I mean, it was actually on conflict sensitivity integration. So now the question was, who is actually involved in decision-making at the community level? And in every community we did the assessment, we found that youths were excluded. And where the youths were limited to was where they are involved in security. You know, down in the rural communities, vigilante activities and things like that. But they were not involved in decisions taken in the interest of society as a whole. Now, the same thing applies to women. So when we talk about youth, male and female, when we talk about women, of course, of all ages.
Yes.
So society is losing out in that area. We don't have youth help participating in decisions. So imagine if youth get involved in decision-making and decision-making processes. We're going to benefit from the huge resourcefulness that the youth can bring to bear in the process.
All right. Thank you so much for that. And you know, we've established that the youth are societal actors, and choices and action affect society differently. Their own choices and actions affect society differently.
Yes.
That being said, is it wise or how even do we place young people at the heart of decision-making processes? We've been saying that the youth are leaders of tomorrow. Where do they start getting this work experience of leadership?
You know, it starts at the home. I mean, society, the microcosm of society is the home.
Okay.
And outside of the home will be the education system.
All right.
And now, starting with the home, if as parents, our children are involved in speaking out their minds about the issues that affect them, then that is one way into decision-making processes. And indeed, we have the Child's Right Law that provides that children's opinions should be sought regarding matters that affect them. So we have a legal framework that already guides our actions. So when children's opinions are sought and they express them, you are already getting them involved. Second level, when you factor in their opinions and you also ask them, how would this work if you wanted it this way? Then we're giving them an opportunity to start practicing how to express themselves and how to make their opinions work. It means the home provides an opportunity for them to learn. That is pursued further in the education system, where they are engaged in, whether it's a curricular and co-curricular activity, where they engage in decision-making about how a program should be organized, about how their classes should be organized. Sometimes, while I was teaching, and I taught creative subjects. I taught literature, I taught English, I taught Catholic Relief Services, Catholic religion, when I started. And for literature, especially the aspect of literature that children find difficult, poetry. Sometimes I never treated poetry in the classroom. If it was a poem that was about nature, I took them out in the field or around the trees where they could sit and they felt nature. And apart from them reciting the poem, I would ask them to compose. And I had wonderful compositions from my students back then. And so when children felt like, we would do better if we're sitting under the tree, I would move over to the tree and sit under the tree. That is involving them in the decision, and that immediately affects their attitude to the subject matter. So I had children that used to be B students that became A students. I had children that used to be F students that became C, credit level students. Those small adjustments we make to accommodate their dispositions, their attitudes, their opinions, their preferences have significant outcomes in terms of what they do at the end of it. So the home front, the school system can begin this. Now, beyond that, at the community level, in the villages we have youth groups, all these age groups. And I think in the traditional systems, those age groups were wonderful structures. I grew up under such age group system, where as a teenager, we belonged to groups of teenagers, and we were made to plan once in a while, especially the long holidays like now, to engage in projects where you work out on a program, you implement it, you sit to review how well it worked out and plan how it should be done the next time. So those are activities that also challenge the mind of the children to test their creativity and do better each time. So it's when all of this is done at that micro level, then you can talk about them engaging in leadership positions like councillors, chairmen, then you can talk about all those other things down to the federal level of leadership. But it always begins at the home front.
All right. And yes, I hear you, where this change is supposed to occur. But what are we getting? What body language or political will are we getting from, our teachers, from the community, from the family, and even the government? Does it look like anytime soon the education system will be redeemed, or are we looking at a situation where the educators are not ready to create and make leaders out of the youth?
I think those in position of leadership really want to accommodate the needs and aspirations of the youth. The problem is they don't know how. I mean, I'm sorry to say this, but now and then you hear of we are reviewing the educational policy. So recently we heard, okay, no, we need to get back and introduce history into our system and things like this. So it suggests that those that are in charge of the system want to listen, they want to do something better. But who are they educating? They are educating youth, they are educating children. And how many times have they gone to ask children, how can we make you learn better? That's hardly happening. How often have we heard them go to really check from those that are learning the educational system itself, the teaching methods, and all of this? So I see people sitting in the comfortable halls in their conference rooms and taking a decision about how to rejig the educational system. That's not going to work for us. So those in government are not able to do that. Those in the classrooms naturally are going to follow the curriculum, what was laid down for them.
Okay.
I think we may get some redemption from the private sector. Those that are running private schools are innovating quite fast.
Okay.
And I mean, I just wish if we had at the federal level, if we had somebody that cared about asking why is Rwanda doing the way they are doing, perhaps somebody would also say, let's have all our children have laptops, let's see whether that makes sense, let's see where it gets us. But I wonder who is thinking about that kind of thing in Nigeria. Perhaps the private sector provides opportunities like that, but the private sector is not the one that should define the way our educational system runs in the country.
As we do know, there is quite a limitation of affordability. Not everyone can afford to go to private schools. So, besides financial exclusion, there's various forms of exclusion that happens in our educational sector. For children living with disabilities, they don't have enough infrastructure for them to properly learn with. What do we need to do to make a more inclusive education system and a more equitable one?
Again, that's a very important question you asked. So the assessment I talked about included also persons with disabilities, and again, at the community level, they are excluded. So it begins with exclusion in terms of whether their opinions matter at all. If the opinions of persons with disability, but it actually begins with the statistics.
Okay.
Do we even have the statistics of children in a particular community that have one disability or another? Because if we do, then it means that in this local government, we have so many blind children or persons in school that are blind. We have so many that have this other kind of disability and this other one, and we're going to work, make sure our system accommodates all of them. It begins with the evidence. It begins with the data. And so our educational system will need to have data, not just in terms of we have so many persons with disabilities in Nigeria, but to disaggregate that into how many of them are in the basic education level, how many of them are blind, how many of them have this, are deaf, how many of them have this other disability, and what is the spread per local government, per area, so that in each place where you have these people, you have an educational system that accommodates them adequately and provides for them to be part of the system. So far, I don't see any concerted effort in that direction. Our school systems, our classrooms are still built in a manner that one would say they are meant only for those that can walk normally and act normally. So you see the structures, and it tells you persons with disabilities are already excluded. But I think it begins with making the statistics work for us, making the data work for our educational system.
All right, thank you very much. Hello, good afternoon. What's your name and where are you calling me from?
Good afternoon. I am Anna. I'm calling from Oba.
All right, Anna, are you close to your radio? Can you?
Yes.
Please.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Anna.
Okay.
All right. Yes, go ahead and make your contributions.
Thank you very much for the fruitful discussions that you are having with your guests today.
Okay.
I'm interested in knowing the youth role in peace and security.
In peace and security. All right.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Yeah. So while that is a little bit off our conversation, it sort of, it sort of tells on the educational system. If the youth are not involved in education, they're not involved in peace and security. How well are we doing with our educational system? So yes, do you want to have a go at that question?
Yes, the question is indeed relevant, and that is why even in the educational system, we have a number of peace-building organizations, and WALEP is one of the leading organizations in this direction.
Okay.
Globally speaking, UNICEF is doing that, where you talk about peace education. So when you integrate peace education in the educational system, it means you're teaching children subjects, but you're also helping them to build relationships. You're teaching them non-violence. You're teaching them relationship skills. You're teaching them mediation skills, negotiation skills. And so the next time somebody offends them, they are not going to give that person a punch in the face. They're rather going to ask, why did you do that? You hurt me, you offended me, and then dialogue takes place. So when you have peace education integrated in the education system, then it contributes towards peaceful coexistence at that micro level, and that can translate to the larger society. But you can also look at this from the angle of the state school programming that UNICEF promotes. So where you have schools that are conscious of the safety of children, then the children are going to treat safety, security, peace as an essential part of the educational process, and they will make that a part of their own way of living with people too. So first of all, it takes integrating peace education into the system, integrating the whole concept of state school programming into systems, and then eventually you see children beginning to see peace and peace building, peaceful resolution of issues, peace, conflict transformation of ideals that should matter to them.
All right. Thank you so much for that. It's 14 minutes to 4. This is Women of 1325. Today we are discussing the youth and Nigerian educational system challenges and prospects. And of course, joining us in this conversation. All right. We seem to have lost connection with our guest, but we'll do well to try to get him reconnected. Nathaniel Nsem Awapila, the Executive Director of Civil Organization, Research Advocacy and Funding Initiatives Development. Speaking on the Nigerian educational system, of course, and the youth. So the phone lines are open. Call us up on 07000 917 917 or on 090 If you have any contributions, do well to call us up. You can send us a tweet at WFM917. Don't forget to include the hashtag Women of 1325. And we have a tweet here from Lawani AJ. She says the cause of this started from them rather. No structure in place, no complaint. Now the result is out. Parents are crying plenty, and this is in response to what we said on having an educational system that prepares students that are not useful in the physical environment. All right, 07000 917 917 or 090 25455. Now let's talk about we also look at the lack of, well, would we say, political will to uphold a certain structure. We mentioned, taking away history from classes and then returning them, and what language, what body language we can sense from the government doing all of these things and not upholding a certain standard when it comes to the educational system, and the importance of being represented at leadership roles. While it's important to involve kids, right, during the learning process on decision making, they indeed should grow up to become leaders of tomorrow. And we have young people who are grown, they're done with school, and they would like to take up leadership positions, but are not being allowed in that space. Perhaps a young person in leadership would understand what it feels like, what it feels like being a young person wanting to effect change, would know the struggles of, the current crop of kids going to school, having to struggle, would understand better, would probably be more digitized or be more sensitive to the third world, the new world problems, right? The problems we have today, 2019, is definitely different from, the problems we had as Nigerians 50 years back. So that is what that sort of inclusion does for us as youth, beyond, right, the inclusion at the very family level or at the classroom level, at the national level. This is not to say we're putting kids right there in leadership positions, no. But young people who understand, who are closer who understand the drive, who are closer to these problems, who can relate a lot more, because they're living in the digital climb. That this is the climb that they're living in. This is the climb that they're used to a little bit more. All right. And of course, just as a reminder, yesterday, the 12th of August, was International Day of the Youth, and it called for the conversation on youth and what the role the youth had to play on this conversation. All right. So if you're just joining us, this is Women of 1325. I am Kiki Mordi, and I've not been alone on the program. I had Nathaniel Nsen Wepila. He's the Executive Director of Civil Organizations Research, Advocacy, and Funding Initiatives Development, and he was speaking to us on this extensive program. Unfortunately, he won't be joining us on the program. It's just 9 minutes to 4, but we do thank him so much for all his insights today. Really brilliant, I might add, insights today on the program. And it's important for us to note that focusing on issues facing the nation, not only do these issues hinder youth from making significant contributions to the economy, it constitutes a system where underdevelopment fosters. When youth do not have proper education, they probably do not have proper jobs. It becomes a space for insecurity. The challenges facing Nigerian youth are too many and inexhaustible. Nigeria is the giant of Africa, and as the giant of Africa, she has sunk so much money for the survival of the African nation. But yet we have the rate of unemployment, youth neglect, social vices, poverty, and these appear to be topping that of other African countries. Therefore, solutions to these problems is for us to imbibe psychological reorientation, and this would mean us building a stable state that will be devoid of corruption and bad leaders. It's against this backdrop that the Women of 1325 have come together to provide a framework for protection of women and inclusion of gender perspective in peace-building activities. Women of 1325 is sponsored by WANEP, that's the West African Network for Peace Building, with support from the Norwegian Agency for Development Cooperation, NORAD. Women in Peace Building Network, WIBNET. Women of 1325 holds every Tuesday on Women Radio 91.7 by 3 p.m. And I'd like to say a big thank you to my producers, Kels Okezie, Blessing Kali, and Anthony Dalmeda. I'd also like to say a special thank you to our guests today for those words. Nathaniel Nsen Wepila, thank you so much for joining us. Quite unfortunate we couldn't get your final words. And I would also like to say thank you for engaging, for tweeting, for calling, and for sending texts. The conversation continues on social media, on Twitter at WFM917. Be sure to use the hashtag Women of 1325. My name is Kiki Mordi. Make it a date, same time, same station next week. Good afternoon.
WFM 91.7.